The rain hammered against the hospital windows like bullets, each drop a reminder that even in a place meant for healing, death could find you. The emergency lights flickered in rhythm with the thunder, casting long shadows down the empty corridor of Busan's most exclusive medical facility. Somewhere in that darkness, a woman who had never known fear was learning what it felt like to drown in her own body. They said the Queen of Busan could never be touched. They said she had eyes everywhere, power that stretched from the docks to the penthouses, influence that made politicians sweat and rivals disappear. But on this stormy night, she lay on the cold marble floor of a hospital wing, gasping for air that wouldn't come, abandoned by the empire she had built with blood and brilliance. And the only person who could save her was a child, a 3-year-old girl with bright eyes and tiny hands, who didn't understand power or danger or death. She only saw a woman who couldn't breathe. What that child gave her in those desperate moments would unravel a secret buried for over 20 years. A secret that would shake the foundations of Busan's underworld. A secret that proved some debts can never be forgotten, no matter how deep you bury them. Because the past doesn't stay buried. It waits. And when it rises, it demands to be answered. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Malik Johnson had learned to make himself invisible. In the 2 years since he'd arrived in South Korea, invisibility had become his greatest skill. He moved through the gleaming hallways of Seongjin Memorial Hospital like a ghost, pushing his cleaning cart, emptying trash bins, mopping floors that cost more per square foot than most people earned in a month. The doctors didn't see him. The nurses barely nodded. The wealthy patients looked through him as if he were made of air. He preferred it that way. At 42, Malik carried the kind of weariness that had nothing to do with age. It lived in his eyes, in the set of his shoulders, in the way he avoided mirrors. He was a Black American in a country where he would always be foreign, working night shifts in a place where silence was currency. His Korean was functional but limited, just enough to understand instructions and apologize when necessary. Just enough to stay beneath notice. But he hadn't come to Korea to be noticed. He'd come to disappear. The memories from his time as an army medic still visited him in the quiet hours. Faces he couldn't save. Decisions made in seconds that echoed for years. When his wife Eunicio died giving birth to their daughter, Korea had stopped being an adventure and started being a cage. But it was a cage he'd chosen, and sometimes that made it bearable. Appa! The small voice cut through his thoughts like sunlight through storm clouds. Zuri came running down the hallway, her sneakers lighting up with each step, braids bouncing. She wasn't supposed to be in this wing, but his daughter had inherited her mother's fearlessness and her father's stubborn refusal to follow rules that didn't make sense to her. Zuri, what did I tell you about the VIP floor? Malik knelt down, switching to English. He tried to sound stern, but his daughter's smile could disarm him faster than any weapon. Sorry, Appa. She wasn't sorry. She hugged his neck, and he smelled the strawberry shampoo he'd used on her hair that morning. But I was bored. Miss Kim fell asleep again. Miss Kim was the elderly woman who watched Zuri during Malik's night shifts, and she had a habit of dozing off in the staff break room. It was a problem, but childcare options for a single father working overnight were limited. We talked about this, baby girl. You can't wander around. It's not safe. But nothing bad ever happens here, Appa. It's a hospital. They fix people. If only the world worked the way 3-year-olds thought it did. Malik stood, taking her hand. Come on. Let's get you back to. The lights went out. Not gradually. Not with warning. One moment the hallway blazed with fluorescent certainty, and the next, darkness swallowed everything. The ventilation system's hum died. The elevator's mechanical whisper stopped mid-breath. Even the constant electronic beeping from the nurse's station went silent. Total blackout. Zuri's hand tightened around his. Appa. It's okay, baby. Just stay close. Malik's military training kicked in automatically. His eyes adjusted quickly, finding the dim red glow of emergency exit signs. But something felt wrong. Seongjin Memorial had backup generators that should have activated within seconds. This wasn't a normal power failure. Then he heard it. Footsteps. Multiple sets. Moving with purpose through the darkness. Not the panicked shuffle of staff responding to an emergency. These were coordinated. Deliberate. Malik SSI. A nurse's voice called from somewhere behind him. The entire building is down. They're saying it's the storm. But... crash. Glass shattering. A woman's scream cut short. Every instinct Malik had developed in combat zones screamed at him to move. He scooped Zuri into his arms. Hold tight, baby. Don't make a sound. Appa, you're scaring me. I know. I'm sorry. Just trust me. He moved toward the service stairs, but the door was locked. Electronic locks useless without power. He tried his access card anyway. Nothing. They were trapped on the 8th floor, and something very bad was happening in the darkness around them. This way. A security guard materialized from a side corridor, flashlight beam cutting through the black. Young guy, early 20s, breathing hard. Mr. Johnson, you need to get to the shelter area. Now, take the south stairwell. What's happening? I don't know. But... the guard's radio crackled. A burst of Korean too fast for Malik to follow. But he caught one word repeated 3 times. A name. Han. The guard's face went pale. Go. Now. Don't stop for anything. Malik didn't argue. He ran toward the south stairwell. Zuri pressed against his chest, her heart beating like a trapped bird's. Behind them, he heard more sounds. Shouting. Something heavy hitting the floor. A sound that might have been a gunshot, muffled and distant. But when he reached the south stairwell, he found it blocked. A maintenance cart had been deliberately wedged against the door. Someone had trapped them here. Appa. I'm scared. I know, baby. Me too. Honesty was all he had left. But we're going to be okay. I promise. He'd made promises before. To soldiers he'd tried to save. To his wife as she bled out in a delivery room. Telling her she'd be fine when they both knew she wouldn't. Promises meant nothing against the universe's indifference. But he'd be damned if he'd break this one. Malik backtracked, searching for another route. The VIP wing sprawled before them, a maze of private suites for Korea's elite. He'd cleaned these rooms 100 times, but in the darkness, everything looked different, threatening. Stay here, he told Zuri, setting her down behind a nurse's station. Don't move, don't make noise. I'm going to find another way out. No, don't leave me. I'll be right back. Promise. Count to 100. Can you do that? She nodded, tears streaming down her face, and Malik felt something in his chest crack. He kissed her forehead and moved deeper into the corridor, trying doors, looking for any exit. That's when he made his mistake. He left Zuri alone, because what Malik didn't know, what he couldn't have known, was that 3 floors below, a different kind of storm was brewing. A power struggle within Busan's most dangerous criminal organization had reached its breaking point. And the woman at its center, the woman who had ruled the city's shadows for 15 years, was lying on the floor of Suite 801, struggling to draw her next breath. Madame Han Soo-jin had felt death approaching for months. The diagnosis had been clear. Progressive respiratory failure, her lungs slowly betraying her. Ironic, really. She who had taken so many breaths away, now losing her own. But it wasn't the disease that was killing her tonight. It was betrayal. Her own people had orchestrated this, cut the power, disabled her security, left her here to suffocate in the dark, making her death look like a tragic consequence of the storm. Clean, efficient, the kind of move she would have admired if it weren't being used against her. She lay on the imported Italian marble, each breath a battle, reaching for the inhaler that would buy her a few more minutes. But her hands shook, and the darkness swam around her, and for the first time in her 53 years, Madame Han felt truly alone. The Queen of Busan, dying like a common peasant. The woman who had never bent to any man, brought low by her own body's rebellion. She closed her eyes. Perhaps this was justice. Perhaps this was what she deserved for all the lives she'd taken, all the families she'd destroyed, all the blood that paved her path to power. Then she heard it. Small footsteps, padding softly across the marble. A child. Han's eyes snapped open. In the dim emergency lighting, she saw a little girl with dark braids and huge eyes, wearing a pink jacket with cartoon characters. The child was staring at her with the kind of innocent concern that existed only in people who hadn't yet learned to weaponize their emotions. Ajama, the girl's Korean was perfect, but something about her features suggested mixed heritage. Are you sick? Han tried to speak, but her lungs wouldn't cooperate. She managed a nod. The little girl came closer, unafraid. In her hand, she held a small inhaler, the kind used for childhood asthma. My ama had one of these. Before she went to heaven. It helps you breathe. She held it out. Madame Han stared at the offered medicine. A child's inhaler, probably too weak to do much. But the gesture itself, the pure, uncalculated kindness of it, struck her harder than any bullet ever could. With shaking hands, she took it. Used it. The medication was indeed too weak for her condition, but it bought her a few seconds of clarity. A few precious breaths. Thank you, she whispered in Korean. The little girl smiled. You're welcome, Ajama. My appa says we should always help people, even when it's hard. Your appa is wise. Han's voice was barely audible. What's your name, child? Zuri. My ama picked it. It means beautiful, in her daddy's language. The girl tilted her head. You're very pretty, Ajama, even when you can't breathe good. Something impossible happened then. Madame Han Sujin, the woman who hadn't cried since she was 12 years old, felt tears on her cheeks. Where is your appa, Zuri? Looking for a way out. The power went away. Zuri sat down cross-legged beside her, casual as if they were having tea. Don't worry, he always keeps his promises. He'll come back. Promises can be broken, little one. Not his promises. He's the strongest man in the whole world. Such certainty, such faith, the kind Han had never known, not even as a child. She studied the girl more closely. The features, the cadence of her Korean, the dialect in certain words. Something nagged at her memory, like a ghost knocking at a door she'd locked decades ago. Your ama, Han said carefully. Where was she from? A village. She told me stories about it. With mountains and a river and cherry trees. Zuri's face brightened. She sang me songs. Want to hear? Before Han could answer, the child began to sing. Soft and slightly off-key, but the melody was unmistakable. A folk song from the southeastern provinces. Specifically from a region that no longer existed on any map. A region Madame Han had personally erased 23 years ago. The air left her lungs again, but this time it had nothing to do with her illness. The song continued, each note a nail in the coffin of her carefully constructed amnesia. That village, those people, that night of fire and screaming and blood. The operation that had made her. The massacre that had built her empire. Where did your ama learn that song? Han's voice came out strangled. From her ama. And her ama learned it from her ama. Ama said it's very, very old. From our family's special place. No, it wasn't possible. That village had left no survivors. She'd made sure of it. Every person, every record, every trace had been obliterated. The order had been absolute, unless it hadn't been. Zuri, a man's voice, frantic, echoing down the corridor. Zuri, where are you? The little girl jumped up. That's my appa. I'm here. I'm okay. Malik Johnson appeared around the corner, flashlight in hand, and stopped dead when he saw his daughter sitting next to a woman on the floor. His eyes adjusted, taking in the scene. The expensive silk robe, the private suite, the woman's face. Even in the darkness, even without power, some people radiated authority. This woman did. And Malik's instincts, honed by years of danger, screamed at him that she was important. And possibly very, very dangerous. Zuri, get away from her. Now. But appa, she's sick. I gave her my inhaler. Like you taught me. That's good, baby. You did good. But we need to go. He held out his hand, eyes never leaving Han's face. Madame Han watched this exchange with an intensity that made Malik's skin crawl. She looked at his daughter the way a scientist might study an impossible equation, or the way a hunter might study prey. "Your daughter saved my life," Han said in English, her accent thick but comprehensible. "I owe her a debt." "No debt. No obligation. We're good." Malik scooped Zuri into his arms. "Come on, baby. Wait." Han struggled to sit up, and despite his better judgment, Malik found himself moving to help her. Old habits. Medic instincts. "You don't understand. The power failure, it's not the storm. My people, they're cleaning house. If you're in this wing, you're a witness. They'll kill you both. Your people. I lead an organization. A very particular kind of organization." She met his eyes. "And right now I'm being removed from power. Permanently." Malik understood immediately. Korea's criminal underworld wasn't his business, but you didn't live in Busan without hearing stories. And the way this woman carried herself, even while dying on the floor, told him everything he needed to know. "Then we definitely need to leave. Good luck with your organizational restructuring. You won't make it. They've sealed all exits. The only way out is if I help you." "And why would you do that?" Han looked at Zuri, still cradled in her father's arms, humming the song from the destroyed village. "Because your daughter gave me something precious. And because I need to know something about her mother. About where she came from. Her mother is dead. That's all you need to know." "Was she from Miryang province?" "From a village near the southern mountains." The specific question made Malik pause. "How do you know that?" "The song your daughter sang. I've only heard it one place in my life. A place that shouldn't have any survivors." The way she said it, the weight behind those words, made Malik's blood run cold. "What did you do?" Before Han could answer, they heard voices. Multiple people speaking in rapid Korean, getting closer. Footsteps that didn't bother with stealth anymore. "Suite 801 is this way. Make sure this time. No mistakes." Han grabbed Malik's arm with surprising strength. "There's a service elevator in my suite. It has independent power. But we need to move now." "Why should I trust you?" "Because I'm the devil you can see. And the ones coming for me won't hesitate to kill a witness and his child." She struggled to her feet, using the wall for support. "Choose quickly, Mr. Johnson. Die honorably or live uncomfortably. The universe doesn't offer better options." If you're still watching up to now, type "I'm still here" in the comment section. Malik made the decision in a heartbeat. He'd learned in war that sometimes survival meant dealing with monsters. He followed Han into her suite, a palatial room that looked more like a penthouse than a hospital accommodation. She moved to what appeared to be a decorative wall panel and pressed a sequence of spots. A hidden door slid open, revealing a private elevator. "In." Quickly, they piled inside. Han hit the button for the basement level just as they heard her suite's main door crash open. Voices shouted. Orders were given. But the elevator was already descending. Zuri, remarkably calm for a 3-year-old in the middle of a crisis, looked up at Han. "Are you coming with us?" "For now, little one. For now." The elevator descended in tense silence. Malik kept Zuri pressed against his chest, his mind racing. He'd come to Korea to escape violence, to build a quiet life for his daughter. And now he was in an elevator with a crime lord who seemed dangerously interested in his dead wife's origins. "Eunicio never talked about her childhood," Malik said finally. "She said it was too painful, that she'd lost everyone." "When did she leave Korea?" "She came to the States when she was 15. Foster care, then college. We met when I was stationed in California." He swallowed hard. "She died 3 years ago. Childbirth complications." Han nodded slowly. "And she taught your daughter that song." "She sang it when Zuri couldn't sleep. I never knew what it meant. It's a lullaby from a village that was massacred in 2003. Every person, every building, erased in a single night." Han's voice was flat, clinical. The official story was a gas leak, an accident, but it was an execution, ordered by the crime syndicate I would eventually lead. The elevator felt suddenly smaller. Malik held Zuri tighter. I didn't give the order myself, Han continued. I was young then, ambitious, ruthless. My mentor ordered it and I helped execute it. We killed 47 people that night. Men, women, elderly, children. We burned the village to ash because its leader had betrayed our organization. We left no survivors. But you did, Malik said quietly. UNSCO survived. It appears so, which means someone disobeyed orders. Someone let people escape. Han's expression was unreadable. And your daughter carries that village's memory in her voice. The elevator stopped. The door opened onto a maintenance corridor, dimly lit by emergency lights. Han led them through a maze of hallways, moving with purpose despite her labored breathing. Where are we going? Malik asked. Somewhere I prepared for this exact scenario. I've lived my entire life knowing betrayal was inevitable. I just didn't expect it quite so soon. She glanced back at them. Or to owe my life to the descendant of people I helped murder. They emerged into what looked like a parking garage, but instead of cars, there were motorcycles. Expensive ones. Han went to a particular bike and opened a hidden compartment, pulling out keys and a phone. Take the Ducati. Keys are in it. Head south on Highway 7, then take the mountain road toward. I can't drive a motorcycle with a 3-year-old. You'll have to learn quickly. They'll have the main roads blocked within minutes. Han made a call, speaking rapidly in Korean. When she hung up, she looked at Malik with something that might have been respect. I've arranged for someone to meet you at Gamshan village. A safe house. Stay there until I contact you. Why are you helping us? Because your daughter reminded me that debts must be paid. And I have 23 years of debt to settle. She knelt down to Zuri's level, her expression softening in a way that probably terrified her enemies. Little one, do you know what your name means in my language? Zuri shook her head. In Korean, there's a phrase, Juri. It means wisdom, understanding, the ability to see clearly. Han touched the girl's cheek gently. Your mother gave you a name that exists in both your languages. She wanted you to see clearly in both worlds. I wish I could have known her longer, Zuri said softly. So do I, child. So do I. An explosion rocked the building above them. Dust rained from the ceiling. Somewhere, alarms finally started blaring. That's my suite, Han said calmly. They're getting impatient. Go. Now. Malik didn't need to be told twice. He secured Zuri in front of him on the motorcycle, silently thanking whatever deity existed that he'd learned to ride bikes during his deployment. The engine roared to life. Mr. Johnson, Han called out. Your wife. Did she ever mention the name Minjun? Her brother. She said he died in an accident when they were kids. Why? Han's expression crumbled for just a second, revealing something human beneath the armor. Because Minjun didn't die. He was killed. By me. Personally. He was 8 years old. The words hung in the air like poison. Why are you telling me this? Malik's voice shook. Because your daughter deserves truth. And because I've lived long enough in lies. Han straightened, the queen returning. Go. Protect her. And when this is over, I'll tell you everything. Everything I took from your wife's family. Everything I owe. Malik wanted to hate her, wanted to rage. But his daughter's safety came first. Always. He gunned the engine and shot out of the garage into the stormy night, leaving the woman who had destroyed his wife's family standing alone in the darkness. Behind them, Seongjin Memorial Hospital burned. The safe house in Gamshan village was a small traditional hanok, hidden among the colorful houses that made the hillside neighborhood famous. Malik spent the first hour checking every entrance, every window, every possible vulnerability. Military paranoia died hard. Zuri fell asleep almost immediately, exhausted by the night's chaos. Malik sat beside her, watching her breathe, wondering how his life had spiraled so far off course. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. It's Han. Don't speak. Just listen. My organization has fractured. The coup succeeded. I'm officially dead, which gives me an advantage. But they know about you and your daughter. They'll come looking. Stay hidden. I'll contact you in 3 days. Wait. She hung up. Malik stared at the phone, then at his sleeping daughter. The girl who'd saved a monster's life with nothing but kindness. The girl who carried the songs of ghosts in her voice. He'd come to Korea to hide from his past. Instead, he'd walked straight into someone else's. 3 days turned into a week. Then 2. Malik and Zuri lived in the safe house like ghosts, venturing out only for essential supplies. Malik paid cash, avoided cameras, kept his head down. The skills that had kept him alive in war zones served him well in hiding. But Zuri was struggling. She asked about Miss Kim, about their apartment, about when they could go home. Malik had no answers. How do you explain to a 3-year-old that they're fugitives because she showed kindness to the wrong person? Appa, is the pretty sick lady okay? Zuri asked one morning, drawing pictures with crayons Malik had bought. I don't know, baby. I hope she is. She seemed very sad. Like she had a hurt that medicine can't fix. Out of the mouths of babes. Malik marveled at his daughter's perception. At 3 years old, she could see things he'd spent decades learning to recognize. You did a good thing helping her, Malik said. You know that, right? No matter what happens, you did the right thing. Amma used to say that the right thing is usually the hard thing. Zuri didn't look up from her drawing. Was she right? Yeah, baby. She was right about a lot of things. On day 16, Han finally called again. I have information about your wife's family. About what happened that night. Meet me tomorrow at Haedong Yanggangsa Temple. Noon. Come alone. I can't leave my daughter alone. Bring her. She deserves to hear this too. The temple sat on the coast, carved into cliffs overlooking the sea. Malik had passed it dozens of times but never visited. Now, walking through its gates with Zuri's hand in his, he felt the weight of history pressing down. Han waited in a small pavilion overlooking the water. She looked different, thinner, grayer. No longer the queen, just a woman carrying impossible weight. Thank you for coming, she said in English. She knelt to Zuri's level. Hello again, little one. Do you remember me? The pretty sick lady. You look better. I feel better. Thanks to you. Han pulled out a small box. I brought you something. Inside was a delicate silver necklace with a pendant shaped like a cherry blossom. This belonged to your grandmother, your mother's mother. Her name was Han Min Seo. Malik's head snapped up. Han? You're related. She was my younger sister, my beautiful, kind, foolish sister who married the wrong man and paid with her life. Han's voice cracked. Your wife, Seo, was my niece, and I killed her entire family. Everyone except her. The world tilted. Malik sat down hard on the pavilion steps. I don't understand, he managed. My sister fell in love with Park Jin-ho, the leader of the village that opposed our syndicate. He was trying to organize the other villages to stand against us. My mentor ordered the hit. I led it. We burned everything. Han stared at the ocean. I found my sister hiding in a cellar with her children. Seo was 15. Minjun was 8. There was a baby too. I don't remember its name. Jae-sung, Malik whispered. Seo said his name once. Only once. I killed Minjun and Jae-sung. Personally. My sister begged me to spare them, but Han's hands shook. I was proving my loyalty, showing I could do what needed to be done. I became the monster they wanted. But you let Seo live. I told my sister to run with her oldest daughter. Gave them 5 minutes before I raised the alarm. I told myself it was mercy, but it was cowardice. I couldn't kill all of them. Couldn't look my sister in the eyes and take everything. Tears streamed down Han's face. My sister died 2 years later. Killed herself. The guilt, the survivor's guilt, destroyed her. And Seo, my beautiful niece, she escaped to America. Started over. Never knowing her aunt was the architect of her nightmare. Zuri, who had been listening with the intense focus children have for adult pain, took Han's hand. You made a big mistake, Ajama. A very big one. Yes, little one. The biggest. But you saved us in the hospital. That counts for something, doesn't it, Appa? Malik couldn't speak, couldn't process. The woman who murdered his wife's family. The woman who saved his daughter's life. The woman who was his daughter's great-aunt. The equations didn't balance. I've spent 16 days dismantling my organization from the shadows, Han continued. Exposing the corruption, the murder, the trafficking. Everything. I'm turning evidence over to international authorities. Men who thought themselves untouchable are waking up to arrest warrants. The empire I built is collapsing. Why? Because I'm dying anyway. The respiratory failure is terminal. I have maybe 6 months. And because your daughter gave me something I thought I'd lost forever. Han looked at Zuri. She gave me a chance to choose differently. To be something other than the monster. It doesn't bring them back, Malik said. Doesn't fix anything. No, it doesn't. But there's money. A lot of money. I've set up a trust for Zuri. Enough to ensure she never wants for anything. Enough for college, for security, for whatever life she chooses. Blood money. Yes, but it's all I have to give. Along with the truth. Han pulled out a folder. Everything I remember about that night. Names, faces, details. Your wife's family history. Her brother's favorite toy. The lullaby's full lyrics. The stories my sister told her children. Everything I stole, I'm giving back. Malik took the folder with shaking hands. Inside were photographs, documents, handwritten notes. His wife's childhood, preserved by the woman who destroyed it. There's one more thing, Han said quietly. In Miryang there's a piece of land. The village site. I've bought it. Had it consecrated. There's a memorial now. For all 47 victims. Their names carved in stone. A place for your daughter to know where she comes from. Zuri tugged on Malik's sleeve. Can we see it, Appa? Can we see where Amma grew up? Aye. Malik looked at this woman who was somehow both monster and family. I don't know if I can forgive you. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. Han stood, steadying herself on the pavilion railing. But your daughter deserves to know her history, to carry her mother's memory forward, to understand that even in the darkest places, some light survived. Did you really kill children? Malik had to ask, had to know. With your own hands? Yes. Minjun tried to run. I shot him in the back. He was 8 years old, and I shot him in the back like a dog. Han's voice was dead. I'll carry that with me to whatever hell waits. But before I go, I want to make sure one child lives, thrives, carries forward the family I destroyed. The ocean crashed against the cliffs below. Seabirds cried. The temple bells rang out, marking the hour. I need time, Malik said finally, to process this, to figure out what to tell my daughter when she's old enough to understand. Of course, I'll have my lawyer contact you with the trust details, the property deeds, everything legally documented. Han knelt one more time, taking Zuri's hands. Remember this, little one. You are named for beauty and wisdom. You carry your mother's strength and your father's honor. And somewhere in you, whether I deserve it or not, you carry the mercy that saved even someone like me. Never lose that. I won't, Ajama. I promise. Good girl. Han kissed her forehead, then stood and walked away, disappearing into the temple grounds without looking back. Malik watched her go. This woman who had shaped his wife's trauma, who had killed children, who had saved his daughter, who was dying with the weight of decades crushing her. The world wasn't simple. Evil and good didn't wear clear labels. Sometimes the monster gave you the truth when the hero gave you lies. Appa, are you sad? Yeah, baby. Really sad. Me too. But also happy. Because now we know about Amma's family. About where the lullaby came from. Zuri clutched the cherry blossom necklace. And maybe knowing is better than not knowing, even when it hurts. Malik pulled his daughter close. When did you get so wise? Amma told me. In my dreams. She says I should always try to understand things. Even hard things. Maybe that was Unesio's final gift. A daughter who could see clearly in both worlds. Who could hold space for complexity and pain and still choose kindness. They spent that afternoon at the temple, lighting incense for the dead. 4 Yoon and Minjun and Jae-sung, and all 47 victims whose names Malik now knew. For the family his daughter would never meet but would always carry. As the sun set over the ocean, Zuri sang the lullaby. The full version, taught to her by her mother, passed down through generations, surviving massacre and exile and death. Her voice, clear and pure, rose above the waves. And Malik cried, for his wife, for her murdered family, for the child in his arms who would grow up knowing both the beauty and the horror of their history. For months later, Han Soo-jin died in a hospital bed, alone except for the nurse who found her. The news reported it as the death of a wealthy businesswoman. No mention of the criminal empire. No hint of the confessions she'd made, the evidence she'd turned over, the organization she'd dismantled from within. But Malik knew, and when Zuri was older, he would tell her the full story. About the great aunt who was both monster and redeemer. About the impossible complexity of human nature. About how a single act of kindness could crack open even the most hardened heart. The trust Han had set up was real, substantial. Malik put it aside for Zuri's future, unable to touch what he still thought of as blood money. But he kept the photographs, the documents, the careful histories Han had preserved. They visited Myeong once to see the memorial. Zuri laid flowers and sang the lullaby, and Malik told her stories about the grandmother she'd never known, pieced together from Han's notes and his own memories of Yoon. Appa? Zuri asked, standing before her uncle's name carved in stone. Was the sick lady bad or good? Both, baby. She was both. People are complicated. But she changed, at the end, because I gave her my inhaler. Maybe, or maybe she was always capable of change, and just needed a reason. Malik touched his daughter's face. You gave her that reason. You showed her there was still something worth saving in the world. I just wanted to help someone who couldn't breathe. I know. And that simple thing, that pure thing, changed everything. Years would pass. Zuri would grow up knowing her history, carrying her family's songs, understanding that mercy and justice aren't always the same thing. She'd use Han's money for medical school, becoming a doctor who treated patients others gave up on. She'd volunteer in prisons and shelters, seeing humanity where others saw only monsters. And she'd tell people, when they asked about her unusual perspective, about the night a dying crime lord taught her that everyone carries both darkness and light. That redemption isn't about deserving it. That sometimes the smallest gesture of kindness can crack open doors sealed by decades of pain. Because that's what happened that stormy night in Busan. A 3-year-old girl with an inhaler gave a dying woman one more breath. And in that breath, that brief moment of grace, everything changed. The deaths of the past found their reckoning. A family's story, buried under blood and ashes, rose again. And a child's simple act of compassion proved stronger than all the violence and power that had come before. This story reminds us that our smallest acts carry weight beyond what we can imagine. That choosing kindness, even toward those who seem undeserving, can transform both the giver and the receiver. That truth, however painful, has more power than comfortable lies. And that redemption, while it cannot erase the past, can still change the future. If this story touched your heart, we'd love to hear which moments stayed with you most. Drop a comment below about what you felt, what you learned, or what you'd have done in these impossible situations. And if you believe stories like this matter, stories that challenge us to see the complexity in people and the power of mercy, please subscribe to our channel. There are more stories waiting, stories that will stay with you long after the screen fades to black. Thank you for watching, for listening, and for being part of this community that believes in the power of storytelling to change how we see the world.